Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 67 of Two Amazon Sellers and a Microphone, brought to you by Solozo. Today, Chris and I are going to be talking about creating your Amazon PPC Foundation with a special guest on with us today, Corey Thomas from AMZ Atlas.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Joining us, this is going to be a lot of fun. Just diving in just to sort of what you do at AMZ Atlas to create PPC foundations for your clients. And it was fun because you guys had a big summit that you put on last week, and Chris and I were just honored to be a part of it. That was just, the production of that was phenomenal. I know it was great value. So we had an absolute blast being a part of that.
Well, thanks again for setting aside the time and helping us out. And I'm glad to be here to share a bit about that. So I can kind of jump into a little bit of the background and what we do at AMZ Atlas and kind of my personal background over the years working on Amazon. So I've been in the Amazon industry for about 10 years now, started on the resale side of the business. So I think, as you've described your audience, I empathize with what it means to do resale. And that company, as I learned how to use the right tape and cut the right box and don't overhang your pallet by more than an inch, or you might not, or they'll eat your inventory at the Amazon system. I been there and totally got that. And I think at the time, 10 years ago, resale was pretty savage and was a low margin business, and some made it work, but we had a hard time making it work. So we really pivoted to the direct import strategy and brand building. And that kind of came through. We had an insight to go off and build an algorithm. It became, kind of widely used to forecast demand. And when you can, click a Chrome extension and see what demand is on Amazon, you can spin up some pretty interesting private label opportunities. So we built a real large private label company that, was one of the 5 fastest in the world growing, based on kind of marketplace pulse insights. If that's a blog, anybody, I'll plug that blog. It's a great source of content.
That's a good one.
And so anyway, that was really where it all started. So it's resale moving into private label. And I had this moment though, where I was like, well, part of the reason we were being really successful was because brands were having a hard time paying attention to what was like one layer removed from their branded search. You at our summit last week talking about kind of the Coke Pepsi search, but what about soft drinks? And so that was kind of the opportunity that I saw of, wow, like private label is getting crowded. It's getting really competitive. And, it's going to go down the path of resale. But if brands, whether big or small, take really good care of their brand on Amazon and not just care about their moat around their branded terms, but terms like soft drink, it's so much bigger than anybody can imagine. And so that's where I transitioned into the Amazon agency space. I've started several agencies, managed hundreds of millions of dollars in sales across different verticals, but it's all in the name of helping brands leverage the channel. And that's what we do as a kind of a full services agency at this point, is outside of warehousing people's goods or taking product photos, we're in the business of doing everything. But this is all that we do. Like we're not multi-marketplace. I'm not trying to build websites out the back door. We're just totally obsessed and focused on Amazon because Amazon changes so much. It's an update to radio frequency requirements last week, and this week it's an update to how you enter tracking information from, merchant fulfilled orders. I mean, that stuff, it was in the news section on Amazon yesterday. Like that just is what it is. And so our team of all these different elements of our business have to pay attention to all those details and keep up on behalf of our clients. That enough of my soapbox for a minute.
Well, it is interesting because laser focusing your agency approach on just Amazon, I think is important. It's enormous. It's a beast. I mean, and like you said, there's so many things changing, and to have for someone who is, a seller, let's say like Chris or myself, who's sourcing their products, working on all these things that we've done. There's so many other things that take an expert, like PPC, which we're going to dive into here in a second, and just creating the best listings and inventory management, and it always changes. And so you're able to leverage what you're doing with all of your clients and what you're learning day to day to help everyone else out. And I think it's important. I think it's really easy in this e-commerce world to be too broad, and they can hurt you.
It's something that I've read, over the years and tried to stay plugged into of what, really good marketers or entrepreneurs have done in the past. And I feel like the ones that I really respect in the world have made really good cases of there's a lot of failed companies that tried to do too many things. Very few, companies fail when they're exceptionally good at something very specific. And it helps that it's a growing industry. I mean, geez, what did Amazon grow 50% last year? It really helps that there's tailwinds, but I would rather build a company that knows a tremendous amount about one thing than kind of dilute our offering for other things that we don't really have any business being an expert in. No, we could add that over time. Like it took 10,000 plus hours to become an Amazon expert on, and it doesn't come quick. 10 years later, it's still hard, but at least we can stand for something. And I think what that allows us to do, we have clients that it's a solo entrepreneur with a handful of products, and we have clients that are publicly traded. We have anything in between. But what you just said, Dustin, is that it really is, it's about complementing what's already being done on behalf of that brand, whether it's a small company or a large one, because there's just so much nuance. Every category has got nuance, and can you use 2 variations, and what's the review strategy, or what, it's endless. It is an endless list of random nuanced insights that can make or break the business, because at least in my experience on Amazon is if you can get the nuance to help starting that flywheel spin in your favor, that really works. But if everybody is using the same basic tactics, there's no way to get past that. Like if you're reading the same blogs that everybody else is reading, and you're adding the same emoji to lead your bullet point as everybody else does, like, what is, again, financial services, they talk about like the market has absorbed that. It quickly absorbs it. What's the best practice that, somebody published somewhere on a blog? Well, if everybody races to do the same thing, then that's just what everybody does. And so you have this requirement to be doing unique things. And that requires, I think, agency partners that can see the bigger picture across dozens or hundreds of brands on behalf of the brands that we work with.
You're the third person in a row that we've talked to that brought up emojis on listings.
I hate seeing those on product pages.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I know. Yeah.
Maybe years ago when nobody had one, it made you stand out a little bit, but it cheapens the listing for sure. That's the consensus that we're hearing.
I'm in that. Even if there's a 1% SEO lift, the brand reputation hit that you take with a fish emoji or something, it's just like can we just put that to bed and not do that anymore, please? That's my one request to your audience. Can we stop the emojis?
I do want to jump into the PPC, and we have lots of questions about that, but I want to touch one real quick on something you brought up earlier. Just, you do hear this a lot, and you see this a lot. Amazon is way more competitive than it was when, like, Chris and I started, or when you started 10 years ago. It's so much tougher maybe to launch a product in a competitive niche, but at the same time, it's enormous. It's way bigger than it was back then. So when you win, it's a bigger win than it could have been back in the day. There's more people that are shopping on Amazon. There's more marketplaces now. So just touch on that, just in terms of like talking to someone who's starting selling and worried about competition, all that. It's still great to be joining Amazon right now.
Oh gosh, and if we just think about how much the market grew last year, it grew by $100 billion in total sales. Now, some of that came from other channels and came from retail because of, the pandemic. Like, there's a variety of places that came, but that's not going to slosh back to every other channel, because especially in, call it shelf stable product categories, which is most of them, it's pretty hard to beat near same day fulfillment or next day fulfillment for whatever product you want. The old saying of like, there's riches in the niches. Amazon is the ultimate riches in the niches game, because you can win in a vertical that would never no one would ever stock your product in brick and mortar, because they can't turn it for the foot traffic that they have. It's too specialized. But on Amazon, it's like the ultimate niche grocery store in everyone's pocket. So I think when the channel is growing as fast as it is, there's more opportunity than there's ever been. And the ecosystem of support is accelerating in kind as well. That doesn't make headlines, but when you think about all the different ways people are starting to use data, or even, a platform like yours at Solozo. Like, that's a sign of a healthy ecosystem when there are more services entering the space, when there's more agencies entering the space, when there's more brands entering the space. Like, that's just going to help the flywheel that is Amazon spin faster and faster and faster, because it's very dynamic and there's just a lot going on. And when there's that kind of competition, there's going to be huge rewards for people, when they can make it work. But I think you can't listen to a podcast from 4 years ago and think that that's going to get you there. Like, I've been listening to those podcasts for 8 years, and the topics are a lot. It has required a much broader set of skills and a lot more specialization than this, hey, I'm going to import it, throw an FN SKU on the container I bring in from overseas that I bought from Alibaba, and I hope this works out. Like that. I mean, the days of that level of strategy and precision and the near guarantee it used to be to launch a private label item, like, it demands more from professional sellers of all sizes than it has ever before. So again, I think it's a vibrant business, but it's also very demanding. It's like the utmost demanding business.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. And we talk to new sellers all the time, and they're trying to piecemeal this together. They're going to YouTube, watching up a lot of videos, and they're trying to figure out, if I had to do it all over again, I would jump into a course or some type of training, because there's so many moving parts that you just don't know about yet. And you think you just can throw a label on something and put a UPC code on it and you're up and running. Those days are gone. You could get your account suspended in the first couple of weeks, and then you could be really in trouble. So I'm with you. You gotta have some type of group or some type of training you're involved in, because it's just not like it used to be.
Yeah, and I think, we're even seeing it for Amazon is starting to become a lot stricter about you having to almost go through the brand registry process before you even get a Seller Central account. I mean, like the days of, again, it's not every case and in every time, but we have clients come to us that have been in business for 20 years off Amazon, and it is a process to get them onto Amazon. And maybe their products have already been selling, but they're ready to engage the market directly because of all the stuff that's happened in the last year. And it's a pain. Like, maybe their products have 1,000 reviews, but their seller has never existed before. And so it's this big, guilty until proven innocent process that Amazon is putting new sellers through. I think there's never been more urgency that if you're ever going to do Amazon, you got to start, because it isn't this light switch anymore where you just like log on, fill out a form, put in your, sole proprietor, social security number, and you've got a Seller Central account that you can go make happen. That's not how it works. Versus an account that maybe you only sell a few $1,000s a month of product, but because you've been in the ecosystem building a reputation as a seller for a couple years, you have barriers. Like, some of the barriers to entry that keep getting higher are just lower because you've been in the space longer, even if you haven't been a big seller. So I think that's what I would tell any of your kind of people who are evaluating whether they should get into this business. If you have any interest at all, get a business, like get an LLC, get your Seller Central account going, and start at least with a little bit of arbitrage or something. Because if you don't, like, at a certain point, Amazon is going to have this question of, do we really need another 10,000, another 300 sellers an hour joining our platform, or whatever the crazy stats are? Like, do we need an extra 1,000 sellers a day? They're adding like 1% overall. It's probably not worth the risk that comes with nefarious behavior on Amazon. Like, they literally, and when you have 5 million sellering accounts, how many more do they need? So I think there's an asset to actually have an account that has reputation on Amazon, no matter what you've been selling, before you go off and import a container of $20,000 worth of product and like roll your retirement dice and hope it works out. Like, I mean, like, they may not even give you a Seller Central account. Like, I mean, what are you going to do then? So you got to get in the game. Like, you've got to do it, and you've got to, but start small. You can do things and you can dabble, but learn. That's where you talk, Chris, about the class is, I think classes make sense. But if somebody's going to charge you like thousands of dollars for a class, what's the thing, like, for those who can't teach, or whatever. And here we are trying to teach. I don't know what that says about us, I guess. But, it's one of those that there's lots that I say there's a lot of noise in the industry, of it's so easy, anybody could do it. That's not true. Like, it does, like, you got to put in the work, just like any business trying to get into a brick and mortar retailer, like, that's hard. Like, this is not a fly by night off the side of your desk side hustle that you can put an hour into every week and hope it's going to work. It's not that anymore. Maybe it was, but it's not that. But if you you stay small and you stay focused, you don't have to make it a full-time job either. But you got to invest. You got to spend every day. You got to get educated. You got to do these things, and trying to shortcut your solution by paying $3,000 to some class somewhere that's going to give 1,000 people the same instructions, and they've been just replaying the same class for the last year. I don't think that's how it's going to, that has never worked in my opinion, because the news gets old quickly. You've got to stay up to speed with all the changes. And that just comes from effort. Like, there's no quick ways to the top in this game when it's this competitive. I don't think.
Yeah. It's great points that you bring up. I mean, if you can invest that money into an agency or into software that's going to help you move along faster.
Yeah, or into marketing. Like, not to do a very deliberate plug, but in a lot of ways, it's like, I mean, the knowledge and the insight that you probably need to get started, you could consume the basics in a couple hours.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon itself is publishing the how to get started, videos, and you can get going pretty easily and get started. But then I would way rather put it into, some marketing efforts or some product development, or trying to test more than one product instead of putting all your eggs in one basket. Like, put it there rather than in a class that, everyone who runs a class is going to hate me for this, but rather than a class to have someone else tell you their story, like, teach yourself some of these things, or bring in an agency that actually will help you manage it, not just give you a playbook that they wrote 2 years ago. Like, a 2-year-old playbook needs to be realized that there's dust all over it. It's all old and out of date, versus an agency or a partner like Solozo that's in it every day for the clients that they already work with. That's what we're in it every day on behalf of all of our clients. So I think it's more fresh information.
Good stuff. All right, let's pivot here and let's talk for a few minutes about PPC Foundations that you would set for your clients. You're in it every day. It seems like every couple months Amazon releases a new way you can advertise on their platform.
Yeah.
So there's lots to stay up on, and those, if you're not filling those spaces, someone else is a lot of times. And we talked about that on the summit. But someone comes to you. What the first thing you're going to do is, obviously, I'm sure, is audit what they've been doing, and then what's just a foundation, just a starting point to get started with PPC for a client of yours?
Well, it's a little counterintuitive, but I think if you haven't, for the brand that you have, if you haven't filed for a trademark, do that yesterday, because some of the ad properties you can't even participate in without that. You've got to be a legit brand, and if you're not yet, from the USPTO.gov, get that started, because it's going to take 6 months whether you like it or not. When you have that opens up really important elements. And I think from where we sit in a strategy that we always use when we work through evaluating how our brand's already doing, you've got to use the sponsored products ad type for your brand name. I mean, that you have to do that both from a defensive position, but also the other off Amazon marketing efforts you're doing and brand building. People are going to start by searching for your brand. And then you got to win those, and you got to defend there. But then what we see is Amazon understands that the advertising business is a pretty compelling opportunity as their platform. I mean, they can build their own little Google inside of their marketplace. So they're going to add more, abilities to advertise. I mean, sponsored brand video is a big winner right now. I mean, that ad type is underutilized, and Amazon is juicing the heck out of that. Like, we are getting clients that if you use that, I mean, the ROI that you get on sponsored brand videos is incredible. And so I think what I would suggest, again, you don't have to have a huge production budget to go build a sponsored brand video. Like, you can literally make the right format and the right file. It could be of a bunch of stills. It doesn't even have to be a motion. So I think you got to have a trademark so you can use all the ad properties at your disposal. You've got to defend your brand with sponsored products, and sponsored products is you've got to be in that space because there's such great ROI. But then I would really seriously evaluate sponsored brand video, because not a lot of people are using it relative to the other ad types. And Amazon is really reinforcing the value of when you convert off of a video, they give you a ton of credit for that. And, talk about SEO value, there's a ton of drag that pulls that forward when you're using sponsored brand videos.
You touched on the sponsored product, and we'll go to sponsored brand video because I think Dustin and I are both big fans of those because they do convert like crazy, which is awesome. But on the sponsored product side, I'm a new seller. I just got my product launched. Yep. I get to campaign manager, and I'm like, where do I start?
Yeah.
What do I do there?
So something that I maybe I'm a little more data driven, but especially if you've gone through the brand registry process, and so you have insights from Amazon's brand analytics, I like use that information. It's across the top of your toolbar under the brands tab. Brand analytics is going to be sitting there. Use that information. You can click brand analytics and go back in time a year and look at day by day by day the search velocity, and it doesn't cost you anything. This isn't another tool you have to pay $50 a month to like get access to. This is Amazon's own data, and start looking at generic terms relative to your item. Like, what's the seasonality of your, food item, your sports and outdoors, your home and improvement, or your tool, whatever it is. Start looking for the terms that actually matter and mine that information. And I like to encourage people to grab the ASIN of the product they're trying to emulate, plug that into brand analytics and see what that performs well for at a keyword level, and then export that. Use that as some foundational insight about what the competitive product you're trying to pursue looks like and what they're performing well for. And then start looking at each of those keywords. You'll get 100 keywords to look at from brand analytics, then do the work and pull those up. How well is insert XYZ brand? How well are they actually, while they may be your goal product to emulate, how well are they advertising against the terms that they're actually performing well for? And I think you inevitably will find holes. You will find holes in their strategy that as you try to emulate them is where you go after. Because you're not going to beat them on the best terms on day one, but maybe the 22nd term that they perform well for, how about we trying to sneak in there using sponsored products very specifically? I think back to your original question, Chris, of use the data in brand analytics to see how well your competitors are performing and what they're performing well for. Then you take those keywords and you put them in a sponsored products campaign so that you're actually able to target very specifically campaigns and keywords that your product has a chance to be successful for. And I think, again, Amazon in the ultimate like feast or famine momentum business it's way more important to convert well on 5 keywords than it is to have 1 million keywords, in my opinion. Like if you convert well on 5 specific ones, like it will be this like nice olive branch that will branch out into 6, and then it'll be 7, and then it'll be 12. This whole like throw 1 million keywords into the wind and see what happens, to me, is really challenging to manage and scale. And then Amazon doesn't even give you impressions because you're never even converting. So I would rather have a client, or I would rather suggest a new seller start winning on 3 keywords and put all your budget into a thing that's like a bullseye for your product, and start winning on 3, because Amazon will let you show up for more, then add a 4th, then add a 5th. And as you do that, you're going to organically start to like elbow some people out, and you're going to take up space. And impressions with great product are going to lead to sales, and that flywheel takes off for you.
And I got my 3 keywords. I'm at the match type area. There's so many: broad, phrase, exact. Where am I going with this?
I think the days of broad, in our opinion, are getting harder and harder to justify. We're very much in the phrase and exact strategy, especially when you're going kind of data up. I think of a new seller, the new seller who's trying to get a sale a day, 2 sales a day, 5 sales a day, 8 sales a day, you got to start tight, in my opinion, because again, you're grounded in the data. You know what's going to work before you ever advertise. Now you just need to be taken seriously by Amazon. Phrase and exact are going to keep it real tight. The moment you get into broad, you're going to start to underperform because you maybe only have a handful of reviews. Like broad to me is it's counterintuitive to think that you would start with the more narrow focus and then go to broad as you're more successful. But I think that represents how Amazon rewards transactions. You need to get transactions to perpetuate more of them. So it's phrase and exact match types grounded in brand analytics keywords for your competitors is a pretty compelling strategy, in my opinion. And it works for us a lot.
Okay, and now I need a budget. We get this question a lot. Like, what should my budget be? What should my budget be? And our default is always like, around $30 a day, because that's what Amazon says inside the app, inside Seller Central. They're like $30 a day. And then some people are like, okay, well, maybe 10, 20. I'm like, you can do whatever you want. Where do you guys think about that?
I think $30 makes a lot of sense, or between 30 and 50 when you're getting going. And part of the reason for that is if the average click cost, again, it matters per keyword, but average clicks are getting 75, 78, 80 cents, $1.20, depending on where you're in. If you're doing $10, you're going to get 10. You may get 8 clicks in a day. You could be doing everything right, but the conversion rate on Amazon, like a 10% conversion rate, is still pretty good on ads. So you may just not have survived long enough on your budget to even know that it was working. So if you think about the per click cost, you've got to be in the game long enough to get enough clicks to see if it works. But it also, I mean, that agencies that make money off of ad spend would justify you go out and spend $2,000 a day then, so there is some happy medium there. But if you start small, that's again, coming back to the really tight focus. I don't want to throw one click, my entire budget of 50. It's the don't spread the butter on the bread too thin. Like there's only so much. If you're doing $30 to $50, that's not a lot of butter for all of these different keywords. So put enough into one that you know if it's going to work or not. And if it doesn't work for a week, stop using it and then move on to the next one. Like don't do so little across so many things that you don't get any conclusive evidence of anything. That I think is really important. Again, you can do it with $30 a day. You can do it with $50 a day, but stay really tight so that you learn, hey, insert that term I thought I would do really well for, I didn't. And we did it for 5 days and it didn't work. I need to put that money now towards another keyword. And when you're that granular about it, I think you can have a really good control over where you're spending your money and learn where you're going to have wins. Because then once you have a profitable sale, okay, now carve out $15 just for that term because it's working. Now let's go back to the drawing board and put another $30 or $40 towards another term. Oh, that one didn't work. Get rid of it, repurpose the $30 to $40. Like you're kind of slowly but surely doing a land expansion.
That's what I'm going to use next time. How much butter do you have?
Yeah.
How much butter do you want to spread?
How big is the piece of bread?
There's two things that I think you've hit on that are just mistakes that people make. That casting the wide net early on, it like you said, it doesn't give you enough data. If you've got 2 or 3 clicks each on a bunch of different keywords, there's no velocity at the keyword level. Even if you got the one sale, what is one sale on one keyword going to do for you? It's not going to move you. And so that I think across the board is the right idea. You should be laser focused on but I really love what you talked about at first, because I think another mistake is going after the word that you are the keyword that's the main keyword for your product early on, or that you love with, and it's so competitive. And like you said, the competitors are already dominating that space, and it would be so. I think it's really counterintuitive, and I love it though. But find out where those holes are and attack where there's low hanging fruit, where there's opportunities. I mean, I've never heard it really explained that way. That's sort of, Chris and I talked about this sort of in a different way, but that is that is, I think, all the people that we talk to that come to us to say, I'm wasting so much money on ads. This is why they're not focused like you're talking about. I mean, it's great.
And I again, you have lots of brands that work with Solozo. We work with lots of brands. Like, frankly, I'm not going to let you as an outside seller come in and take one. If one of my clients is doing really well in that top term, I'm sorry, but I'm like, you're not going to win that.
Right.
Now, like, I'm just not going to let that happen because we're one of the top 3 results for that term, however popular it is within Amazon, and I'm going to stay there. Like, that's, I think this challenge is the only way that you can pick at the professional sellers at scale is not by going head to head with them, because they've got legacy history with Amazon. They've got velocity within that keyword. They have history. Hence the thing we talked about earlier. You got to get in the game. You got to start building some kind of history. So if you're in the game and you can work through that, then you're able to do things that let you be not the newest seller on the block, but it's not it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that it's going to be real hard if you go after soda or soft drink, like that's expensive, but maybe you go down like organic, zero, no corn syrup, like break it apart, break it into its components, and use Amazon's real data through brand analytics to tell you. You don't have to guess. And again, I think we talked about kind of the old playbook, the Google playbook of long tail, mine the million keywords. Yes, you will find a sale there. But in my opinion, when what is the stat? 70% of people never click to page 2 on Amazon. I just don't see Amazon behaving in the same way that the super long tail Amazon does, or excuse me, that Google had, and where the SEO, Amazon, it makes money. Think about Amazon's motivations to make money. They make money when product sells because they do the fulfillment, they get the ad dollars, they get the referral fee, they get everything. Google's in the business of knowledge and selling expertise. Amazon's in the business of selling stuff. And so selling stuff means you need velocity and turn. And you see it throughout the business. Now it's item level storage restrictions that they have with inventory, and IPI scores are requiring 450, 500 last year. Amazon doesn't want their warehouses plugged up with a bunch of slow turning inventory they don't make any money on, but 65 cents a cubic foot for storage. That's not what they want. They want to make 15% off items that sell 1,000 units a day. And then you have to compete all day long for advertising to maintain that space. That's a really good business for Amazon to be in. Selling 1 or 2 products across this giant landscape is just not what their platform is, kind of built to do. So it's better, again, to win in one place very deliberately than it is to try to participate a little bit in 100 places.
It's such good stuff. All right, let's talk about, because we want to talk about more things, sponsored brand video.
Sure.
Do you recommend right off the bat? So as a part of the strategy, I've launched my product. I've found this targeted keyword I want to go after. Am I launching sponsored brand video right now?
It's a great question. There's a little bit of the chicken and the egg sometimes of where a couple reviews really matters. You don't need a ton, but I think you gotta be a little bit deliberate and work through your first few reviews. At times, and this is again getting really far down if you even want to do a little bit of Vine, promote something to get a review or 2. But at the same time, sponsored brand video, especially on a niche keyword, nobody's doing that. You may be the only one in that little niche that's going to put up a video and actually care about that niche enough to do something about it. Good for you. That's going to capture somebody's attention. So while reviews help, I have found there's such good click-through and such great conversion on sponsored brand video ads that you almost can't start too soon with those. It helps to have a handful of reviews, but get after it. But just stay really focused, because those are such rich properties that they're expensive. If you try to go at soft drinks, but if you get into that niche way down there at the bottom, that's going to make a difference, because you'll be the only one that has your video with your 12-ounce can of some, super delicious kombucha or something, get in on that video. And it's also, just think about how people are consuming. More people buy on the phone than ever on Amazon, but I find I make the mistake all the time of thinking about, because I'm on my computer, what the computer experience is like, because I'm on my computer doing research and running my Chrome extensions and all that stuff. That's not how, especially for items that are consumable products or kind of brand agnostic, that is great for starting sellers on the private label industry. That stuff is cater made to buying on the app, and the app shows fewer products in page 1 of search results. It's harder to go to page 2. It shows different content. I think you got to do that sponsored brand video, because that is pretty prominent on the mobile app within Amazon, and it has great click through and great conversion.
That's awesome. Yeah, and
you can make it off a still. It doesn't need to be somebody running around in this really huge production value. It can be a little bit of motion on a still photo, or something. Get creative and figure out a way to make it on a low budget. But I think if you qualify for that SBV ad, get it in there, get started, and start with a small budget and watch what happens.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. I used my own iPhone, did mine, just did it real quick. And it's not the best quality, and I only did it because I wanted to get it up fast. I wanted to get it up there, and I just did a quick iPhone video.
How did it go for you, Chris?
It's doing great. It's awesome. It converts like crazy. So it's awesome.
And I love that. I feel like videos. Sponsored brand always had the promise of A/B testing the term that you used versus sponsored products, which is just the title. I feel like you can do a lot more, especially if you're doing it in the way you described, Chris, where like getting nimble about it is do some A/B tests around what your video is. Like what is the thing that's going to catch somebody's attention as they're scrolling through all these products looking for one thing. Be eye-catching, like pop out, try some different things. And again, start with small budgets and a limited number of keywords and see which of these 5 videos you want to run gets the click-through rate that you want and the conversions. Like, again, get back to these, like, tactics that I think help you be a bit more nimble than the giant that's just going to throw the same video at a million keywords and throw budget at the problem. Like, that's not the strength of a lot of sellers you're describing. Is you got to be nimble. You got to break things down. You got to care about keywords that don't have the most search velocity, and you got to care more than anybody else cares about that one keyword, and go win that keyword and watch what happens.
Well, one thing you can certainly do when you're niching down to that specific keyword that you want to target, your video can be about that keyword. That should be the thing that they see. And then you're going to get that. That's going to improve that click-through and the conversion because they just searched it. And now here's a video saying the word that they just searched. You can, that is a way to, and the big guys probably aren't doing that. Like you said.
Yeah. For that, that garlic press that the garlic press that you're trying to sell, make sure it says garlic press or like, stainless steel garlic press or, something.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't forget about the barbecue gloves.
Like, look at the term. What do people care about? Dishwasher safe garlic press. Do a video of it coming out of a hot dishwasher. Come on now. Like, get creative. Like, and if it doesn't work, then get a fancier dishwasher and try it in someone else's house. Like, I mean, try different things or be crazy and smash some garlic in it. Like, I don't know, like just try it out. It's way more, there's so much more creative control over a sponsored brand video than there is what's my auction for a sponsored product. I mean, that's all you got. You got keywords and budget on sponsored products. Like, be different in the sponsored brand video because the video itself is an entire opportunity to A/B test.
I'm here, but one more question, then we'll wrap it up. When do you start targeting other products in your campaigns? At what point do you start adding ASINs to your campaigns?
I feel like there's a lot of wasted money in that, and there's also some like gems in that. And I think you got to have a solid business before you're going down that path. And solid is relative. Like, you got to be selling units. You got to have reviews. If you're the product that's got 2 reviews and you're targeting ASINs that have 10,000, I mean, you're just not there yet. You got to stay the course on things that are in your lane, because the diversion of someone who's on a product page ready to buy a product that's a brand maybe they recognize, that's expensive and hard. Like, the click-through rate and the conversion is going to be pretty challenging. So in my opinion, I guess it kind of also a little bit depends on the way that you're, the property you're using, like sponsored display. And I think of in particular, that's just hard. Like that is hard, and it is low ROI because you're really trying to like steal a sale right at the bottom of a funnel. That's really tough. Now, if you start targeting some ASINs, in some ways, it's a very similar approach that I talked about with a very specific keyword, the top 50 keyword rather than the top 1 keyword. You could do the top 50 ASIN, like what's the one that has good momentum. It's got 200, 300, 400 reviews, but it's not the 10,000 review giant. Like, what's that 200 or 300 one? Start picking at the edge of that one. Don't pick at the edge of the 10,000, because that's not a novel idea. Everyone wants to pick at Coke or Pepsi. Like, how about 3 layers out from that, you pick at the brand that's like not nearly as established and still sells off of something besides their brand name. Trying to steal from a brand directly that has a reputation that's huge is really hard. So pick at one that's still in kind of that commoditized space, just like you are. And I think you got a good chance to, again, pretty deliberately in small ways, steal sales here and there. Does that answer your question, Dustin?
It does. And this has been, this is really gold for someone who's out there starting their Amazon business. Everything that you just laid out, this is like us seeing these mistakes being made all the time. And people coming to us saying, advertising doesn't work on Amazon. I'm rolling all my money. My ACoS is 400%. It's like we just see this, and you just laid out the roadmap to how to not let this happen. And it is counterintuitive. You're taking baby steps. You're working your way into this giant, and I mean, it's amazing. So, all right, somebody's been listening to this. They're like, oh my God, Corey, he's amazing. I've got to work with him. How do they get in touch with you and AMZ Atlas?
Well, yeah, so you could reach out to me directly. My email is Corey, Corey, at amzatlas.com. That's amzatlas.com. Just send me an email. We love to help out. And I think, again, in a noisy industry like we're all a part of, where there's, get rich quick schemes, and it might as well be Bitcoin. Like, that's just not how we operate. Like, I would honest to a fault. And so we're just that's just how it is. We're gonna tell you strengths and weaknesses of the brand that you have. If we can help, we'd love to do that. But also, agency doesn't come free either. And somebody is I'm not in the business of making false promises. Like, we are going to be honest about the road ahead for somebody who approaches us. But that person who wants to get after it and is ready to hear the truth, not necessarily what they want to hear, we're all about that. Like, that's the kind of client we want to work with. That's like, okay, I'll put in the work, I'll do the time, I'll listen to you when you say that selling an item for $8.79 on Amazon is the fastest way to lose money. Like, okay, we got to find a way to multi-pack your item or sell it for higher value. Your FBA fee is going to eat your lunch. Like, there's no ego here, but I would hope the people that reach out to us also have that same disposition, because I can't convince somebody to make a good decision. We just tell it how we see it. And there are some major fundamentals that are pretty challenging on Amazon. You don't have any reviews. Okay, this is going to be a tough road. It doesn't mean you can't do it. Been done before. Did it last week with a client, put an item in the top 10 of a toys category with an item that was 45 days old. Like, we did that. Like, now, it wasn't easy. Took a budget, took an ad plan, and we made it happen. But to think Amazon's too far gone is not true. But you have to be very deliberate, and you have to focus on the nuance, because just throwing the tactic at it that everybody else does is not going to get you there, especially if you have a product that's brand new.
That's good stuff, Corey. Well, I mean, I know this has been ultra valuable to everybody listening. We'll definitely have you back on, because we touched on just one tiny aspect of the Amazon space. There's so much more that we can dive into. So we'll definitely get you back on again soon. But thanks so much for taking.
Absolutely. Anytime you need it, I'll just, crack the head open and just hopefully we didn't, didn't go in too much jargon. When you start talking IPI scores, sometimes people's eyes gloss over. Like, what is that? Like, I don't sell radios. I don't care about FCC requirements. Like, well, it's changing.
It's so funny. Yeah, we will have you back on for sure. Everybody out there, thanks for listening. This content's been great. If you love and you want to learn more, hear content like this on a regular basis, please go to all of our channels where we're live streaming this. So we live stream this on Solozo's Facebook page, the LinkedIn Solozo page, our YouTube channel, which is called Solozo. We're live streaming these every day. If you're listening on the podcast, would love for you to subscribe to the podcast so you get notified when we have a new episode with unbelievable people like Corey. So subscribe, give us a review, and thanks again for tuning in. Hopefully this has been valuable. I learned something today, so that was worth it for it was worth it for me.
Winning.
Yeah, exactly.
You raised the bar today.
You did, Corey. You taught me something, which is fantastic. So anyway, awesome. Thanks again for coming on, and everybody will be back at this again tomorrow. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.